Hello, and welcome to episode 35 of Scuttlebutt, a Marine Corps Association podcast. I'm Nick, and I'm just going to be quick today because we're going to jump into Vic's trip out in California. But first, before we jump into that, I want to tell you about Modern Day Marine. It's running this week. It's in Washington, D.C. If anybody's in the area, stop by our booth. We'd be happy to see you. And if you can't make it, we will be sharing on social media throughout the week just some of the highlights from our industry partners and the Marine Corps leadership. So they kind of talk about how we're going to win tomorrow's battles. But back to Vic, who is out west talking to Paul Greive, or Farmer Paul as he's called. He was an intelligence officer. He was in Iraq. And when he got out of the Corps, tried the paleo diet. Was excited it was working for him, but when he was looking up how the meat was actually being processed, he was a little disappointed to find that even though they said no antibiotics, even though it said it was free range, not always the case. So he and his friends got together, started up Pastured and Primal Pastures, and if you would love to hear about that, keep listening because Vic and Paul get into it. So without further ado, throwing out 2,800 miles to my west to Vic. All right, we'll catch you later.
All right, welcome to Scuttlebutt. I am Vic. Hello and welcome everyone. And I am really honored to be here with Paul Greive, who is the owner and I guess head farmer of Pastured Incorporated.
Yeah.
And you started with is Primal Pastures. It's also so multiple business owner, former Marine, former 0203. Paul, man, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's an honor. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, this is great. And just so for our listeners, as you guys know, I'm on the road. I'm out in Cali. I'm out in beautiful Marietta. It's an absolute gorgeous day. I don't mean to rub it in for you folks, but I just want to give you guys some context that, yes, I am working, but this is a pretty sweet gig. so thank you so much for having me here.
Definitely welcome.
Just to give you guys a little context, I was just sort of trolling through LinkedIn and came across some of Paul's posts. I mean, super interesting story. I'm not going to do it any justice. But yeah, Paul, could you just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and just some of your time in the Marine Corps, and then we'll get into what it is that you're actually doing now.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in downtown Seattle, city kid, really like no interest in food or farming. I was always an athlete when I was coming up. I came down to college in California to play baseball and ended up doing track and field and just really loving that. And I studied accounting. And as much as I loved accounting, when I was graduating, like at 22 years old, it just sounded 0% interesting to sit in a cubicle and like start my, back arching and just becoming like this decrepit, like 35-year-old. So
yeah, like the cubicle gnome.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really intend on going into the military at all. I was thinking I would go on a missions trip or do like Peace Corps or something random like that out of college or travel. But over the course of maybe a week, 3 guys that I really looked up to and respected all sort of independently said, hey, you should really think about like the military. And, the first guy says it and he's like, oh, whatever, not interested. Second guy, it's kind of like, oh, that is a good idea. And then the third guy all in the same week. And I was praying for guidance and trying to think of what to do.
You just planned this out?
Yeah, exactly. These guys didn't even know each other. So, and then if I was going to do the military, I was definitely going to go to the Marine Corps. That's what I wanted to do. And so I went in 2007. I went to OCS and then TBS and got ground intel, which was like the MOS that I was really hoping for. And I deployed with a MIT team in 2009 to Southern Iraq. And it was a great experience. It was all awesome. But what happened, I guess to back it up, how I got into farming was I was in Scout Sniper Commander's course in Virginia, probably like 2008 or so. Mm-hmm. And it's the backwoods of Virginia. So we were covered in ticks coming out of the field. Like, you do the tick checks and there's like, I think we had 40, 50 ticks all over us. And I happened to get one that gave me Lyme disease. So I started getting the crazy bullseye rash. And it was just obvious classic Lyme. And they got rid of it with antibiotics and stuff. But after that, I started to really feel like a lot of brain fog, fatigue, achy joints, just like stuff that I hadn't really experienced before. Mm-hmm. around that time, like 2008, 2009, CrossFit was starting to get really popular in the military, in the Marine Corps, and paleo was kind of like going with CrossFit. You know, it was all this intersection back then.
Yeah.
And so I had some buddies just like, oh yeah, it's this thing, you eat like a caveman, like you could do, you know. And I was like, dude, that's so dumb. But I was really feeling like shit. So I was like, I want to give it a try and just see. And I really felt so much better after just a couple weeks of doing it. Like I could put a heavier ruck on, didn't need to go with so much Motrin all the time. And it was like, okay, the first time in my life, I thought what I eat actually affects the way that I feel.
Yeah.
Which sounds elementary, but like I'd never even considered that before. And so I went to Iraq, kind of came home, and I was geeking out on all this paleo stuff. I was feeling really good and doing CrossFit. It was like, this is awesome, you know? And we were going to the store trying to find good, healthy, organic food. And we could find produce, we could find grass-fed beef, but the one thing that we could not find was like legit chicken that was raised outside, living on pasture, like eating grass and bugs and worms and seeds and all that stuff. And even at the farmer's market, we couldn't find it. So it was about 2012 at this point. We were kind of just, as a family, joking around. Easter time, 2012. Oh, that's crazy. That's 10-year anniversary. I mean, think about that. That's rad.
Well, congratulations.
Should probably celebrate that with the family. That's a trip. Easter 2012, joking around about getting some just backyard chickens, you know? And we were joking. My brother-in-law apparently wasn't. He kind of like disappears from the room. He comes back 10 minutes later and he's like, hey, I just went online and like ordered 50 chicks. They're going to be here in 2 weeks. They're like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
I love that. It's not what's like, I got a couple. I got 50.
I got 50. Yeah, that's how our family does it, you know? We got the birds, kind of like raised them up. We geeked out on this guy, Joel Salatin, out of Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. He wrote a whole book called Pastured Poultry Profits about how to do this at small scale in your backyard. And our first time harvesting the 50 birds was legit like a chicken in a traffic cone upside down on a tree and like an iPad with YouTube. And it was like, hey, back it up. Like, how did you do that? You know, eviscerating and doing all the processing and stuff. And we thought those 50 would just be for our family because we have a huge family. But we decided to just throw something up on social media. And we're like, hey, if any friends or family or anybody wants some, you know, we have 50 birds available and we're about to harvest. And like within 2 weeks, all 50 were reserved. And people had put down deposits and they were like going crazy. And there was a waiting list building. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, you know? Yeah. And so I was out of the military at this time, working as an accountant in Newport Beach. I'd just gotten out in, you know, accounting sucked as bad as I kind of thought it would. You know, it was like good money, space, right? But yeah, exactly. And it was like, whoa, that was gnarly, you know? So then the next month we did 100 birds and the same thing happened, and then 200 and then 400. And pretty soon we were like doing these meetup points, and we had this growing list of people that were really fired up on what we were doing. And it was like, I was an accountant, so I knew.
And this is happening in your backyard.
This is all in backyard.
Yeah, this, and for those who don't know, Southern California.
Yeah.
Newport Beach ain't known for its backyard.
Well, this is in Temecula in the backyard.
Okay.
My in-laws' house in their backyard.
Gotcha.
So they had 2 acres, and it was like, it's not a real farm.
Right,
But it's not, you know, it's not a tiny backyard.
Yeah, but it's not Newport Beach, yeah.
It was not prime farmland. It wasn't, you know, it was just a big backyard, essentially. And it was classic because back then we used to do farm tours. And we'd have people coming out from the city and be like, oh, this farm is so great. Like, it's such an awesome farm. And we're like, bro, this is a backyard. Like, my father-in-law, who grew up in the Midwest, would just laugh every time people would come for a tour. He's like, I can't believe these people think this is a farm, you know? But it was all about transparency and like getting people to inspect what they expect, like a lot of those military principles. And it was just a rad way to start the business. And so we started with chicken. We had people asking like, where would I get grass-fed beef from? Where should I get, you know, pasture-raised pork? And so after a while of sending all this business to other farms, we found a couple of farmers that didn't really like to talk to people. They just wanted to put their head down and farm. And we were pretty good at selling. So we would buy animals from them, we would butcher them, and then we would sell them to our customers. And it was like, this whole little business started to grow. And we called that Primal Pastures, which grew from like 2012 to 2015 up until the point where this is a crazy story. So we had a breakthrough in 2014 when Kobe Bryant was playing for the Lakers and Steve Nash. And they were like these older dudes that were still trying to compete at this crazy high level. And they were looking for the most nutrient-dense foods that they could possibly find. And budget was not an issue.
For those guys,
they'll spend anything, you know. So the team chef found out about us, and they came out for a tour. and they were just like blown away by how we were doing everything and how different it was and store-bought, and like they didn't care about the price
That's
at all.
so awesome.
So our first ever wholesale customer was like the Lakers.
Lakers.
And then the Dodgers found out what the Lakers were doing because they all trade notes. And so then our first two customers were like the Lakers and the Dodgers.
No
and
way.
That was a trip for
Talk
us.
about coming out of the blocks.
It was like, dude, this is some serious validation.
Yeah.
And in startup world, like anytime you can get a little dose of extra confidence, it helps, you know?
Sure. Well, I mean, and especially like for those clients, I mean, their bodies are their business. So they're not
100%.
messing around.
They're not screwing around. They're not trying to buy marketing claims. They don't care about our packaging or what
right.
the branding looks like. It's like they want the best freaking stuff they can buy.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge validation for us. And from that experience is where we really started Pastured, because we were like, look, we have this little tiny backyard primal pastures thing. We sell to 500 families. It's this great, crazy expensive program. Yeah, the Lakers can buy it. Yeah, the Dodgers can buy it. But like, I didn't grow up with money, you know. And by the way, we didn't start the business with any money either. It was $500 each between 4 guys, and we were like, we're never going to put another dollar into this. If it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, we'll go back to our
just like maxing out credit cards. That's basically it.
Credit cards.
Yeah,
that's why we got into chicken, because like chicken, we could buy a chick in the feed, and by the time that credit card payment was due, was about when we could like sell the bird. Like that wouldn't work with beef cattle or pigs or anything. You know, 'cause it's a way longer timeline to harvest them.
Sure.
But coming from a background with no money, it felt weird selling these crazy expensive products that like my mom and dad couldn't have afforded. And so it's like, okay, this is cool. It's great to offer these gold standard premium meats that like even Whole Foods, you know, you would make their prices look cheap essentially.
Right,
it's
right.
the most expensive stuff in the world. But it's kind of a bummer because we're almost like producing food for rich people, and that's not us.
Yeah,
like, that's not what we were all about. So then we're like, okay, what would it look like to really scale up this model of like raising animals on pasture in a way that's regenerative for the environment? Like, what would it look like to actually grow this 100x and bring costs way down to the point where you're not Whole Foods prices? Like, how do we get Trader Joe's prices? How do we get Albertsons type of prices? Like for everyday
for everybody, yeah.
people. I'm not saying we're ever going to be the cheapest, but how do we get it in striking distance for a normal family?
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And that was the genesis of Pastured. So it was all about building, you know, automation and tech and this whole crazy automated range coop thing that we came up with in San Diego, and ultimately ends with like partnering with the largest organic chicken company in the country. And we could talk about all that, but that's really like how the whole thing happened and unfolded.
That's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to touch on a lot of these key points here. It's like, it's just amazing to hear, because usually when you think about business, I mean, and you know, from the outside looking in, it's so easy to sort of demonize industry.
Yeah. And
especially for a small company that has grown so quickly into doing what it is, there's always sort of this nefarious, at least from the world according to Vic, there's sort of this idea that, oh, they're all about the bottom dollar. Once you get to a certain size, it's all about the bottom dollar. But to hear you say that, like, no, we're actually trying to make this accessible to people who don't normally get this kind of food on their table. This sort of nutrient dense, humanely treated, like truly humanely treated, not just a sticker on the box. And to give that to, you know, the everyday person who doesn't always have access to that level of nutrition. Man, it's so great to hear that. I'm sure that there's plenty of stories out there, but they're not advertised.
Totally.
Like you said, a lot of these guys just want to keep their head down and do their farming.
We were the most anti-big ag ever. I mean, coming up in the like niche space, big ag is the enemy. Like they're the bad guys and they're the devil essentially.
I mean, it's why you were struggling with your health.
Totally. Right. So it wasn't for years until we realized like, okay, this is cool if we want to build a tiny niche for rich people. If we want to like actually move the needle and leave it better for our kids, which is the whole idea. Like how do we leave the whole industry better for our kids? Big ag is a critical part of that. So like how do we give them real life solutions to do this stuff at scale and actually move the needle? Like that's what it all became. And what I realize is these big companies, like all they do is respond to consumer demand. So for the last 50 years, people have asked for cheap chicken. Guess what you got?
Yeah.
They did an excellent job actually of giving us cheap chicken. Like it's, you know, compared to what it was in the 1950s or 1960s when families could afford like one chicken a week, and that was a very expensive protein. I mean, it's come all the way now to where it's like the cheapest protein, and people essentially eat it for budget and economic reasons.
Right.
But I think people are asking for something different now. Like, we've taken the needle so far the other direction.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we need to recenter a little bit, I think. And so these big companies, yeah, you can demonize them. You can kind of like look at them as these faceless organizations. But what we found, at least within Purdue, is like, they're real people.
They're
honest. They're good people. And all they want to do is give customers what they want. And now the customers are asking for nutrient-dense foods, regeneratively grown foods, stuff that's good for the environment. They want to produce those kind of products, you know, in an authentic way too, which I would add is like a lot of these companies will just do it in a nefarious, ambiguous, misleading, greenwashing way.
Well, dude, as we were getting ready for the show, we were talking about one of the companies that I thought was doing all of those things, and they're just really good at packaging their stuff. And man, I got to tell you, man, it hurts my heart.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I do feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, man. And you seem to be leading the charge on that, at least in the Southern California area.
Yeah, I don't know about. I mean, I'm one of many, I think, that are trying to like build a better future for
I
food.
fear maybe not enough. Maybe one of many, but we need more.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm uniquely focused on helping Big Ag move their practices, where a lot of the backyard guys are like, and I think it's important. Like, we need change kind of at the farmer's market level, all the way to like the Costco level, you know, and everybody in between needs to.
Yeah, you got to be able to trust more than just the Amish, right?
Totally, exactly. Well put.
And I apologize for, I didn't write it in my notes, but like, you just got a certification that it was unheard of in SoCal for your size of your operation, right? It's like it's like farm to table, or it's one of these basically giving you accolades for the humane and sustainability stuff that you had gotten. Maybe I'll have the benefit of
I actually don't even know
the internet here, and let me look it up. You got a I don't have.
See, my problem is sometimes like this news may have come out 6 months after I remember.
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I don't even remember.
Well, you're just doing so well, man. That you don't
right.
realize how well you're actually doing. We'll come back to it, and we'll edit it in.
No, it's fine.
Later.
I'm curious to know what it is.
We'll definitely put some stuff in the show notes.
Cool.
So it'll give links to your website, so everybody can see like all of the great things that you guys are doing.
Awesome.
But I guess if I want to rewind just a little bit, and some of what a small world this is. So you went to Concordia University in Irvine.
Yep.
So does that mean that you went through Oso, Orange County?
Yeah.
Dude, I went through Oso,
That's
Orange
a
County.
trip.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Back in '97, dude.
Okay.
It was like I raised my right hand there in Irvine, right off of, I think it was a McMillan or whatever.
Yep.
Is it still there?
Yep. Same spot.
Dude, that's awesome. And then
funny.
You were at Third Tracks.
Yeah.
Until 11, you said?
Yeah.
And I came back to Third Tracks in 11.
That is crazy, actually.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Like the Marine Corps, I mean, people are always like, "Oh, you're in the Marine Corps. Do you know John?" I'm like, "Come on, bro." Like,
Yeah,
no.
seriously.
But that's crazy, actually.
Yeah. And so, and like, such a great, like you said, such a small community, but I mean, from a LinkedIn post to now, here we are, man. It's so crazy. So anyways, I digress. So I guess let's talk a little bit, because it's just so amazing to me. It's such a great story of basically what started as a Facebook post now has you working with Purdue, the largest producer of chicken, and hopefully the largest producer of like truly organic, sustainable chicken.
Yeah. They're the largest organic. They are, I'm not going to go try to toot their horn. Mm-hmm. But I would say, I would respect the heck out of the company. Largest organic, first ever to really go no antibiotics ever. They're really pioneering in like the humane treatment of pigs with their Nyman Ranch brand. They do a really great job with like grass-fed, grass-finished beef. I mean, they're really trying to push the bar forward. Yeah. And they always have within the industry. So when we started thinking about who we're going to team up with, so chicken's tricky, dude, because it's a very vertically integrated industry where you have hatcheries and feed mills and you have slaughterhouses and you have distribution, and like to be an off-the-shelf independent small poultry company is essentially unheard of in 2020, 2022, whatever we are, because it's impossible to own all the links in the chain. Yeah. So in order to make it more accessible and affordable for more people, you either have to go find like $50 million to go start your own hatchery, feed mill, and slaughterhouse, and trucking and logistics and distribution, or you go partner up with somebody else. So we were West Coast guys. I didn't really know that much about Purdue.
Yeah.
I always thought we would partner with like a Foster Farms or there's a couple other bigger chicken companies out west. But Purdue kind of came on our radar because of their history and what they had already done. And we sort of dated them essentially for 6 months or a year, had them out for farm tours, got to meet their leadership, like got to really know them. And it was just clear that they are the industry leader in this better for you, better for the planet space as far as the big guys go.
Yeah.
And it just made a ton of sense for us to work with them on the project.
That's so great. Yeah, especially we're talking about sustainability, and like I think you had mentioned it, and we talked about it in the pre-show. Like, I didn't get into diet, I just relied on a high metabolism and fucking getting ready for the PFT.
Exactly.
For most of my life,
right.
And so I felt like I could eat anything. Yep. Like, as a matter of fact, I probably should eat simple carbs because I need the energy right now.
Right.
And then, as I've gotten older, now that I've got kids, it's just like, dude, I don't want them eating this garbage.
Yeah, that's what's a trip about it, man. It's your life changes, or your mindset changes a lot when you're feeding somebody else, not just yourself.
Right.
I can go work it off, or I can deal with sore kneecaps, or whatever. But when you're taking care of somebody else, it's like a different story.
Yeah. And having just driven cross country, like if you drive past some of these cattle ranches, and you could literally, I don't know literally, but it seems like you could literally walk on the backs of all of the cows.
Packed in pretty tight.
Packed in so tight, man. And I'm like, I want to cry for them. But then I also want to cry for my boys. Like, if they eat beef, this is what they're eating.
It's really a shame. Yeah. The industry is it's gone so far down the whole industrial revolution of bigger, faster, cheaper, better, without an eye towards the animals' welfare, the environment, or my own personal conviction for doing this, the health of the meat that we're actually feeding our family.
Right, because when they're stressed, science shows, right, that there's a ton of really poisonous enzymes that start to enter into the meat, right?
Yeah, look, our meat is, air quotes, safer than it ever has been before as far as not making people literally sick.
Ebola and all
which
that,
was
right?
50 years ago,
Right.
100 years ago. That was a serious concern.
Mad cow.
So we figured out the air quote food safety thing, but the nutrient density is where it's really scary to me. So Patagonia did a study comparing the nutrient density, or the vitamin A specifically, of an orange in the 1950s to an orange now. And this is an orange, so it's nothing to do with meat.
Right.
9 times more vitamin A in our oranges 60 years ago or 70 years ago compared to now. And there's no different genetics. It's literally the soil that does not have the nutrients that it once had.
Yeah.
That's feeding that orange. So it looks like an orange. It also, it may kind of taste like an orange, but it's not an orange.
It's just empty calorie.
That's the same goes for broccoli and for radishes and for chicken and everything. When we're not farming our animals with an eye towards the nutrient density that we're putting out, it freaks me out. And look at that track. It's not slowing down. It's speeding up.
Yeah.
The nutrient density is just leaving our food. And so I think that comes to a collision course before we know it. Maybe it already did.
Yeah, I think we're on
Maybe
that glide path, man, because, if you look at it, the population isn't shrinking.
No.
And people got to eat.
Yeah.
And especially richer countries want to eat better stuff.
Yeah.
Or they want to eat as much stuff. They don't want to have to cut back, and they sure as hell aren't hunting.
Right.
So, where is it coming from, and how are we putting food on tables, right? And so...
It's what me, as a dad, is what kind of really motivates me. If I put my consumer hat on, not my farmer hat, and I think about regenerative agriculture, people are geeking out on that buzzword now. But as a dad, I don't care that much about some random farmer's soil in the Midwest. That's fine. It's cool to do right by the environment. That's nice. But what I really care about is giving my kids the best, most nutritious food possible.
Right.
And so to me, that's where the intersection really comes, is I'm willing to spend a couple extra bucks on something that's way better for my kids.
Agreed.
And I don't know that people at large are really going to care about soil health and carbon sequestration. And it's some people do.
Yeah.
Go into LA, you'll find some really conscious consumers that are trying to do right by the environment. The average person is just trying to feed their family the best food they can.
Yeah, right.
So until we can tell that story, and we have crazy data back on when you raise animals on pasture where they're foraging and they're pecking and scratching, they're eating a mixed, varied diet. And they're getting exercise, and they're getting sunshine. It's like, and this isn't to toot our own. I mean, this is like anybody who raising chicken this way. 50% higher vitamin A, 50% higher vitamin E, like 4 times higher NADH, glutathione, dipeptides, like all these micronutrient. The profile is like 2 different foods.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And we, in America, we price food on like dollars per pound. I don't even know if that makes that much sense anymore, because it's like, who cares if you're paying an extra 20 cents per pound more, but you're getting 4 times the nutrients.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I could eat a whole Costco chicken, and this isn't trying to bash Costco, but I could sit down and eat a whole rotisserie chicken from Costco. When I eat like pasture raised chicken, I'm pretty much full of like a drumstick and a thigh.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know that this whole price per pound thing even
That's
makes the
such a
most
good
sense
point.
anymore.
I didn't even think about like appetites.
Right.
We have like an epidemic in obesity. It's because people aren't satiated when they eat.
And how do you get satiated off a bag of Fritos and 10 sodas? It's like,
or garbage chicken.
Right.
Like you said, I could eat an entire rotisserie chicken and not get what you would get from a pasture raised.
It's crazy.
Breast and drumstick.
Right.
Like something that would be like very equitable, meet all of the whatever the FDA like food zone things on your plate. But yet, you have to eat an entire thing just to feel a little bit full.
Chicken is not chicken. Carrots are not carrots.
Right.
It's like it all depends on how it's grown and the soil that's literally growing it,
Yeah, I don't want to give my kids milk and say, hey, you need this for calcium, and then hear from the pediatrician that they're calcium deficient.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah,
I wonder what happened there. So, yeah, it's a whole new world. I mean, it's funny because it's new, but it's very old. Let food be thy medicine. I think that statement's like 500 years old or 1,000 years old. But it's all starting to come back. So it's like raising animals on pasture. I mean, that's not a new concept. Yeah. Moving animals, not having them be stationary, that is not a new concept. Like, we didn't come up with anything remotely new. This is the way it's been done for thousands of years or millions of years.
Yeah.
If you look at bison herds, they're all migratory. Like, animals were never meant to stand on top of each other living on their own shit.
Right.
That's not the way it's meant to be. So we've really like bastardized raising animals, and to be honest, even the way that we manufacture plants is really sketchy now too. We've gone so far on trying to create cheap food. That's only cheap because we're subsidizing it too, by the way. It really shouldn't be as cheap as it is.
Well, like you said, I mean, if I can eat just a portion of what it would normally be, maybe in the immediate it may seem more expensive, but over the long haul, if I can make a chicken last a couple days,
exactly.
Vice having to go to the store every 3 days.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the long haul, it's going to be more cost effective as well.
Well, here's a stat for you too. So go 100 years ago and you look at like 100% of somebody's income. Where did they spend it? It was like 40% goes to food. This is like in the 1920s or so. 40% goes to food, less than 10% to healthcare. Fast forward 100 years, it's legitimately inversed, where 40% goes to healthcare and 10% is spent on our food. And it's like, it's cheaper. Again, air quotes, it's cheaper, but who are you paying? Do you want to pay the farmer? Do you want to pay the doctor?
Right.
Do you want to actually invest in your long-term health, or do you want to have this like quasi, it looks like you're getting cheap food. Yeah. But are you really,
Well, and then to beat the drum of your mission statement is that with the sort of income divide the way it is, many people, probably the vast majority of people, don't have access.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And so that divide just gets exacerbated, and that pendulum or whatever, that paradigm just gets so out of whack because now people are really having to spend way more on healthcare because they don't have access to nutrient-dense foods.
That's why we started the company. I mean, it was just like we had this awesome direct-to-consumer brand, but it was so expensive. And as awesome as it is, it's like, dude, my parents couldn't have afforded this. Mm-hmm. So what are we really even building here? And that's like our passion now, is how do we make these foods more in line? Because I would bet you 80 or 90% of people would spend a little bit extra for way healthier food.
I think so.
I had a conversation with a guy today that was like, I don't care how the animal is raised. It ends up on my plate one way or another, on my grill one way or another. And I'm like, okay, you do have the occasional person like that. I actually think that that's the minority, though. I think most people, if they could get something that was better for them for around the same price, they would prefer it.
Yeah.
I think that that's most people's camp. So, but as it stood, it's this crazy divide between like health food being gnarly expensive. Pasture-raised chicken has historically been 4 times more expensive than store-bought chicken. I was like, okay, even if you want to, most families just simply cannot afford to spend 4 times more because the chicken was raised on pasture.
Right.
But could they spend 14% more, 10% more? Like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they would want to.
Yeah.
And there's also that transparency, because I think you said, like, none of us go out and like, hey, I want to eat something that was treated like shit all its life.
I don't think so. Yeah.
But we also don't trust the labels either.
Right.
So you're just like, I've got no choice. I'm just going to go with the cheapest thing.
Yeah.
And so if you have that transparency and you are building that trust and you are coming in good faith, I think who wouldn't want to do that? And like you said, for a modest increase, I think it's a reasonable thing to ask.
And we're not there yet, dude. I mean, we're still really building this. Our stuff still is pretty expensive compared to the conventional, but I feel like we're on this path to like make things more affordable. And the transparency is huge. I talk to people all the time. I'm deep in this industry now, 10 years in. I know what every one of those certifications, don't mean essentially. Like I could play the game, you name the label, I name the loophole. Like every one of them's got something where you can kind of skirt around what its intention was. And consumers are super confused. You walk through the grocery store and it's like the side of a NASCAR truck with 20 different certifications and third parties, and it's like this and that, all the attributes, and it's like, man, when did we stop telling stories and just rely on stickers to like tell our stories? So I think as farmers, that's an area we can do way better.
Yeah.
Like, people will want to hear these stories. We started doing something really crazy, I guess, which is a live stream. We just go, put an iPhone inside of the Coop, and we just run it live for hours, like once a week or twice a week. And that's not to say that we're perfect or that we're like, beyond anything. Like we still have tons of room for improvement too, but we think people want that, man. People want to be able to see exactly how their food's being raised. And you could look in there and say, oh, like I think the bird should have more sunshine or more access or different thing. But it's like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to show you exactly how we're doing it. We've also had 26,000 people now come for farm tours, like a real life farm tours where they walk the field and they see the animals for themselves. And it's like, sometimes I think people get here and they're like, oh, I expected to see, 10 birds running around in a big open field. That's not what we're doing. Like we raise 10, 20,000 birds a week for the market. Like we're not the guys that are just a few birds running around.
Right.
But we want you to see it and like see what it is and see what it's not too. I think people yearn for that like transparency, so we want to give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a world now where information is so readily accessible. Yeah, it's like, well, if you're not making it accessible, like what are you trying to hide then? Totally. So that's really great. I'm sorry, I'm just hit pause really quick.
We're supposed to be going to Texas this weekend, but my sister-in-law was going to watch the kids at night, like stay with them and stuff. And her mother-in-law just had like a crazy heart attack. So
oh my gosh. Yeah,
gnarly. She almost died, dude. Died like last weekend, but they brought her back and she's doing okay. She's 65. So
yeah, my father actually passed away at 67 from a heart attack.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And so talking about food, man, like yeah, he was a marathon runner, had some back injuries and stuff, and then just through over medication, he ballooned up to like almost 350 pounds. Frick. Yeah, and so 67, passed away back in 2009. So sorry, man. Yeah, it's dying, man.
It is. But those meds though, they throw you on those meds, and it's like not a lot you can do sometimes. Yeah, and they make your body do all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it just
that's what I'm worried about for her now too. It's not my sister-in-law, but it's her mother-in-law. Right. And they got her on 20 different meds twice a day, and I'm just like, dude,
it's not good.
You can eat as clean as you want. Well, eating clean will help, but those meds make you just crave different things, and just it's not good.
And it's the dependency issue too. Then
I know
it's so rough. Well, hey, so as we're talking pasture bird again, it's so mind blowing that this started as a Facebook post. Yeah. So what? And I saw you did a TED talk, and you talked a lot about like the value of making mistakes. And we did talk a little bit about how you came up, but like, what for our listeners who either have transitioned or about to transition, like, what is it about making mistakes, at least in the farming business, that has been successful for you, and even making mistakes in the Marine Corps that has sort of given you that foundation to be successful at this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can really be successful without putting yourself in a spot where you can at least make a mistake. And it's like knowing what mistakes are okay to make.
Right.
I could risk losing $500. It wasn't the end of the world. I wasn't mortgaging my house. I wasn't like, I wasn't going crazy. I was going to go bankrupt or something if I lost $500. So it was a kind of a low risk mistake, really. And I wasn't even really planning all this stuff. It was much more like, this would be a fun hobby. Let's just do it in the backyard. It'd be something interesting to do after coming home from Iraq and kind of like bored with this accounting job.
Right.
I had no vision of building a chicken empire. That was not at all on my radar. So it was like, it was much more of like, as these, I would say as God kind of opened these doors, it was like, what, really? Like, you want me to go get 500 chickens? Like, okay. I mean, the opportunity's there.
Right.
It's a small risk to take, and the mistake became increasingly like smaller and smaller at that point.
Yeah.
So that was huge for us and our family. And I would say like we were certainly blessed and or lucky along the way, but we would have never even had a chance to be successful had we not like put ourselves in that position.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I definitely get that. I think that there's a certain level, like success is almost self-fulfilling. Especially for Marines, for service members. You sort of grow up in this world where everyone tells you this shit.
Yep.
And so when you have success, you're like, well, of course, I'm a Marine. Like this is part of the package.
100%.
But then we're so hard on ourselves. We eat our young when someone screws up.
Yeah.
And we don't look at the value of like, hey, no, this is how you change. This is what resonates. Because if I just, I always wondered, there's always that, that old axiom of like, oh, it's better to be lucky than good. I never really understood what that meant. I, to be quite honest, I still don't really.
Yeah.
But I do feel like when you are successful, you don't know the difference.
Right.
Sometimes it's luck and you call it, it's because I'm good. And then you get other axioms like, well, you create your own luck, which is very true. But you don't learn anything from that. I think the learning comes from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And
I'm with you, dude. I think the Marine Corps is, well, I don't know. The OODA loop. Remember the OODA loop?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, for
What is
sure.
it? Observe, orient, decide, act.
And there it is, man. Yeah.
That's
pound
business.
it in.
That's business all day.
Yeah.
So you could call it a failure when we have something go upside down, or you could just think of it as like, okay, that's a note in my book. That's a learning opportunity. Like I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
What the heck even is failure?
Yeah.
Aside from like a massive blow up in my marriage or going bankrupt and like not being able to recover from it. I don't think I put anything on the line that was true failure. It was like, I'm fine to make mistakes and learn from them. And I would actually even say, okay, yeah, we were lucky, but I could actually think of like 5 different spin-off businesses that could have also taken off from just putting ourselves in this like kind of wacky farming business. Like we thought about, a real estate development company doing homesteads and selling them. We thought about, I even had like an online course for a while where I taught people how to market their farms. There was like all these different branch off businesses that you could say were failures, but I wouldn't think so. Like we were just kind of casting the net out, see what takes. And then like, as that door opens, we just go through that one. So chicken for us was not what we intended on. I wanted to do beef cattle. Okay. I think cows are awesome. Like I love cows. Yeah, we have them right here on this farm. We have them on the other farm too. And it was just literally like, we talk a lot about SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We didn't have any money. We're in Southern California. We don't have a lot of land. And there's like 20 good grass-fed beef programs already in the market. So guess what? Like that door pretty much closed. And it made a lot more sense for us to go into chicken where we're sunny 360 days a year. We can like do it on a credit card and it works for our financial situation. It's a product that doesn't really exist in the market. So it was like that OODA loop happening faster and faster. And it's like, oh my gosh, like there's a crazy opportunity in chicken. Not necessarily what I wanted to do, but it's paid off. It's like really paid off.
Yeah.
Where if we would have just stuck to our guns and said, no, we're going to do beef cattle, or like my original thing was like, I want to build an app that connects farmers to consumers or something like in the tech space.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been a quarter as successful as what it's been, because we like to listen to what's actually happening on the ground.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. And then, and I think about like this, some of the things you're talking about, like sort of this measured. So it's not that you're just going into stuff just all free, willy-nilly, like, my hair on fire, like, sell the house, we're going to do this thing. They're calculated risks that you're taking, and you're already factoring your ability to absorb a mistake, but you're not discounting the value of making the mistake. You just don't want it to break the back of whatever it is you're doing.
It continues to this day. We launch a collaboration product with 3 other West Coast producers. So we did like a chicken with an olive oil with a locally grown pepper. We launched it as this box. This is maybe 6 months ago. We thought, man, this is cool. Like, this is gonna be awesome. People are gonna geek out. We did a whole recipe card. It flopped, bro. Like, nobody bought this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you know what? Back to the drawing board. Like, that thing didn't work out. We're gonna go figure out why, learn from it, and then we're gonna do a better collab next time, or market it differently, or whatever. It's like, you could chalk that up as, oh, we just failed, or like, I just actually succeeded because I just learned like 10 things that don't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it happens even still,
That's so cool. And then, so this is a new endeavor, this location that we're at.
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah. I've always wanted to own land. We came up with no money, and farmland is crazy expensive, especially in Southern California. So we used to have a ranch. We would drive by the property that you and I are sitting on right now. I always kind of loved it. I fell in love with it, and the price was so expensive, it just wasn't going to happen. But as we were driving by it, I kept seeing the price kind of dropping. And so when we sold Pastured to Purdue, we had some extra capital, and I wanted to put that capital into farmland. And this property kind of came onto the market, and I negotiated it with the landlord, and eventually we were able to just close on it. So now it's kind of like our own family's research and development farm. I'm really fascinated by the intersection of plants and animals together, how plants feed animals, but animals really are meant to feed plants with their manure. And so we're doing what's called like a agroforestry here. We're going to have an orchard where animals graze the strips in between the trees. And so it's mostly going to be like a U-pick style farm.
Okay.
Where people can come out and they can pick their peaches and plums and apples and kind of like have fun with that. But then the animals will actually be the fertility program for that. And we'll harvest some beef cattle and chickens and stuff like that too. So it's really like our own spot where we can invest in some longer term projects. On leased land. We can never really plant trees because you don't know how long it's going to be there.
Right.
But this we hope to like keep in the family and give to our kids and all that stuff. And so we can invest in some much longer term stuff.
That's such a great idea. I mean, is anybody doing anything like that?
I mean, there are U-picks.
Right.
They're less and less popular. And there's not too many in our area of like 500,000 people. There's a blueberry one and there's a strawberry one. Nobody's doing a mixed orchard. Though, right? No, I'm not doing the animal thing. So I think it's a really cool, unique deal.
It sounds
cool. Also, back to like accessibility and affordability, 90 cents of the fruit dollar goes to not the farm, right? So it's like the picking, the packing, the logistics, the retailer, the distributor, like all these other people. 10 cents of that dollar ends up going back to the farm. So what if we cut out all of those guys and sold fruit at like the price that we can sell it at if it's U-pick? So that's partly my hypothesis, is like, how do we make locally grown, organic, regenerative, peaches and apples and plums and raspberries and blackberries like Walmart prices? The catch being you have to come out and pick them. But really, I think for some families, like that's actually a bonus. So that's an added value.
Good day out with the kids.
Totally.
And again, you know what you're getting. It's nutrient dense.
It's hard to slap a label on something you pick.
Right.
You can see, you can see what's going on here.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for it. It's a very long-term project. Like it's a 10-year development kind of thing. We have a test plot planted with 300 trees and about 800 berry bushes. We'll get a little bit of fruit from it this year, but really like next year is the year that we'll start to see a real harvest from it. So now it's like all the fun stuff of working with the city and trying to allow, commercial production and people to come on the farm. So it's like the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
Devil's in the details.
Well, and so as we transition, the topics, this is a great, I think, launching point as we start talking about transitioning, either into new endeavors out of the military service. The multitude of ways that we in the human experience transition, I guess from one thing to the next. It's just when you look at where you are now, obviously taking some risk again, learning from previous mistakes, capitalizing on previous successes. What do you feel like the Marine Corps, did it set you up for this?
I would say so.
Yeah.
100%. Like the Marine, the whole idea is that you're gonna get the job done with like shitty tools.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna have the Air Force tool set at your disposal. You gotta kind of just figure it out with what you've got. I think that's farming in a nutshell. So we early on started working with the Farmer Veteran Coalition, which is a really cool group that got us like a $5,000 grant for some irrigation supplies, and then they link you up with a mentor who's been in farming for a while. And it's abundantly clear that like a farming career is really, I guess a military background is really beneficial to a farming career, especially like a small independent farmer.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's limited to farming at all. I think it's small business in general. The figure out how to get it done and work until it's finished mindset is like really, really beneficial.
And like get knocked down, but always get up.
Like there's no option.
Yeah.
And in startups, it's the same thing. Like you don't see too many successful startup founders that are people that are just going to give up easily.
Yeah.
You're not going to be in the game very long,
Or that just had instant success coming out the gate, right?
It's rare, dude.
Yeah.
It's really rare in the startup world. Every story that looks like an instant overnight success, I guarantee you, is met with like blood, sweat, and tears.
Sure.
If you actually talk to the founder, like it's much gnarlier than it looks like from the outside.
Yeah. And then today you're hosting, talking about transition. Some vets are coming in.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's NCAT is coming out for Arm to Farm event. So it's like 25 guys that I think are still in that are really interested in farming. And so we're just going to get them out here, kind of show what we have going on this R&D farm, talk about whatever they want to talk about. I think that's at the end of like a 1 week intensive for them. So I'm hoping to have a bunch of good questions and just like they can go as specific as what breed of chicken should I be raising up to like what business should I be starting in farming. I'm in rural Ohio. Like would this type of business work? No. Like a you pick business in a spot where you don't have anybody around you might not really be the best. But like let's talk about Joel Salatin has this whole thing of like there is no bad place to farm or good place to farm. It's like what are you growing or doing that's unique to your surroundings, your capital, and all that stuff. So it'll be fun to talk about all that stuff today.
Yeah, that's really great. I think that's another thing I said I hadn't really thought about, but like where you're situated, sort of in the middle between Los Angeles, San Diego, Vegas to a certain degree. I mean, you're in the middle of all of these massive built-up areas. So a you pick thing would be pretty great because
I think so. Yeah.
Someone who's really health conscious, nutrition conscious, probably would get a kick out of driving an hour out to your farm and doing a thing.
Or even from our little valley out here, which is 500,000 people, but it's really like family centric. And so it's a great family activity to do. It's cheap, it's fun, it's like nutritious. I mean, you'll rarely see a kid happier than one that's just free reign on eating blackberries out of a field. Like this is the best thing ever as a kid.
And so for an Intel guy, that's sort of like your IPB, right? Like you really got to take a look and just map it out.
I like that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Well
you
done.
can keep that one, man.
I'm going to use that today.
And so what then would you say as far as, so I'm assuming, as you said, these guys are probably guys and gals are probably in the process of transitioning out. Maybe have done tap and tamp, maybe haven't. But what sort of ways can you either synergize with tap and tamp or kind of maybe give them perspectives that those, which I went through those transition programs you did too. I thought they were really great.
Yeah.
But there is sort of this like cookie cutter sort of thing because, I mean, at the end of the day, we've got hundreds of Marines, sailors, airmen, soldiers that are leaving on a daily basis, and we've only got 5 days to get you ready.
Yeah.
I guess where's the synergy and where's sort of the juxtaposition where from what you've experienced having transitioned to what they're going to learn?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but like I would say tap and tamp just can't be your whole world. There's more out there than just defense contractor and trucker.
Right,
you know, like
right,
there is more out there, especially
You're more than your resume.
yeah, within small business, especially, you know. And I'd love to talk to some of these guys about the value of like having a 9 to 5, but then starting your own thing off to the side and kind of like moonlighting for a little while you have consistent income. That's what I did for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I was working as an accountant, but then kind of starting the farm thing on the side. And then I got it to a certain point where it was like not really ready for me to jump off and do it full time, but it was trending that way. And it was like, all right, I'm ready to take this risk again.
Yeah.
Where it could have failed.
Yeah.
But like I could have also just gone back and been an accountant.
Right.
So what was the real risk there, you know?
Right.
And these guys, I mean, they need to understand the value of their service, especially if they have an honorable discharge. It's great if they have a skill where they can fall back into a job or leverage like benefits and salary and start their own thing on the side. And I would really like to talk to these guys today about going against the idea of like you have to go out and take $1 million loan, buy a farm, buy cattle, buy a $250,000 tractor. Like that is the normal way to get into farming now. It is not the only way.
Yeah.
I would submit that it's not even close to being the best way at this point.
Well, let's talk about some of that, because I was looking at some of like your earlier interviews when they would show sort of the aerial like drone footage of your farm. It was, you had the Coop and you had a tractor that was pushing it.
Yeah.
Now yours are automated,
Yeah.
solar powered,
Yeah.
right? And they do the. So could you talk a little bit about?
Yeah,
that?
I mean, it's like our whole idea of scaling and automating and doing all this. Like, there was no tech that enabled a big farm to do that. So a company like Purdue that wants to do pasture-raised chicken, there was no infrastructure out there to be able to even do it. So that's another thing. It's like there's so many opportunities within ag. It's not all about just how many acres can you get, how much corn can you grow. Like that's one thing you could do. I would say it's probably not a smart thing to do. You're going to go eyeballs in debt and, you know, just kind of doing what everybody else does. But you can break the mold. Like we said, here's a problem that these big guys have. They want to be regenerative. They want to do pasture raised, but there's no large scale solution to it. So right here in San Diego, our director of farm development, Dan Cody, and myself and our co-founder, Jeff McDaniel, basically came up with this idea for like a miniature 6,000 bird chicken coop that's on wheels, powered by solar, that drives itself to a new spot every day. So there's no floor in the coop. The birds have their shade, they have their food and water, but the whole idea is like instead of birds eating, shitting, and sleeping on the same spot every single day, this thing will actually drive itself to a fresh spot of pasture. So we went out, we got investor funding, we like did a whole Series A or seed round thing, and we funded it, and we built this like prototype, and that's what really got Purdue interested in what we were doing, was this like large scale pasture prototype. So it was a really unconventional way to break into ag, but at the same time, like I don't think Purdue would have been that impressed if I'm doing 600, 6,000 or 60,000 chickens per week. It doesn't really matter to them.
Right.
They do millions of chickens a
right.
week. So it's like I could have spent my money trying to grow this big chicken business, which would have been really hard, or I could focus on like this thing that I thought fit into their puzzle really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think we were rewarded for doing it that way, because we were able to like make a lot more money a lot faster, get our investors their huge return, and like make some money for our family too. And that was just off of like, again, IPB or SWOT analysis, or like what can we actually have an impact on.
Yeah.
I don't have 50 million in the bank. Like I'm not going to go build a chicken empire on my own. Let me look at like what the industry really needs, build something custom tailored to that, and then kind of like cross your fingers, to be honest, because they could have said, oh, this is stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and just walked away, you know? I would have been surprised if they would have done that, because I think it is pretty cool what we built, you know? But yeah, that was largely just like, what can we have an impact on? Where can we be good, given our land base, our capital set, our own personal skill set, you know? And that's what we came up with, was the automated range coop.
Dude, that's so cool. And like, and to sort of juxtapose it for our listeners who aren't maybe aware or just assume that this is happening. This isn't happening everywhere.
Right.
Most places, it's what? Has a floor. It's just a barn.
It's like a
big gym,
24,000 bird stationary
and
facility.
they open the door for an hour a day.
And that would make it free range or organic, you know?
Yeah. It's
And the birds don't go outside.
That's
you know?
redundant. Yeah, maybe because that's what birds do. They're not like eagles as soon as they see
exactly,
them play out, right?
They're not your dog that's going to run out and play in the
Right.
field. Like a chicken is a prey animal. they want to be in the shade. They want to be close to their food and water. Like they don't want to really venture out
Safety
too
in
far.
numbers, yeah.
You'll see, like maybe egg layers, they'll venture out a little bit more, but by and large, they want to be close to their flock and they want to be close to their shade, and their food and water. So instead of trying to like kick these birds outside into an environment that they're not really even that comfortable in. And by the way, if you kick them to the same spot every day, what's going to happen? They're going to eat all that grass. They're going to shit on the ground. It's going to be like
they're going to eat their own poop eventually.
It's going to be the same as keeping them inside. So instead of doing that, what if the barn actually moved itself like the herds of bison do, right? So if you look at 100 years ago, 200 years ago in the U.S., like you had 80 million bison, and they would live in this big herd. They would eat the grass, poop on the ground, and then they would always be moving to a new spot. That manure is like the best fertilizer in the world,
Well, anybody who's shot out at
Yeah,
Camp
exactly.
Pendleton had to get
Seen
shut
bison.
down for a day because the damn bison won't leave.
Exactly. And that's a tiny representation of what our country actually looked like. That's why you have you had really black, rich soil and crazy amount of water in the ground, like in the American Midwest, where we've now taken all that work that the bison did for 1 million years and just extracted the nutrients for corn and soybeans. It's actually really sad if you think about how much went into that and how we've just extracted it. And it's like, we're depleting that resource so fast.
Yeah.
You can't just keep doing that forever. So that's why I get really excited about this idea of like, now we're at a scale where we can put chickens onto crop fields. Like, give me 1,000 acres of corn. I'll take 100 of it for chicken. I'll put them on there for a year or two, and then I'll move to the next 100 acres, put the corn in behind me, and actually we can do this like plant animal integration that I think has the ability to like change the way that, the future of food looks.
Man.
Which is really cool.
That is very cool.
That's cool to be a part of. And it's not my idea. It's like nature came up with that.
Right.
We're just applying it on a different overlay to farming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that before the show started, we talked about the demand signal. And I think you, in certain respects, are meeting that demand signal, but you're already also sort of triggering that.
Yeah.
And for people who maybe didn't realize that this is a thing that they could participate in.
Totally.
I know I feel sort of rejuvenated because it's really easy to get just exasperated by the labels and the complexity of like all this stuff and who's telling the truth and who's bullshitting me, who's actually doing what they say that they're doing.
It's like a very depressing space.
It's hard.
Walking through the grocery store, there's not a lot of positivity or optimism. I think that's what the difference. So we talk about regenerative agriculture and sustainable agriculture being really different targets. So like with sustainability, it's the idea that, the best we could ever be is a net, neutral.
Right.
And it's like, no, bro, like we're called to steward the land, which means like we can make it better every single year. And I think it's been a depressing model. Like, well, we just assume that we're going to have, we're going to try to just minimize negative impact. That's a depressing mission. Like, we're just going to try to be
You're supposed to congratulate you
least
for that.
bad as possible. Like, come on. But this idea of regenerative, which applies to plants and animals and fiber for like our homes and our clothes that we wear, that we can actually like work with nature in a way that builds organic matter and sequesters carbon and like increases nutrient density and gives animals like a high level of humane life. That's what's really exciting to me.
Well, you could see it in the pictures, like some of your posts. Like you show the land that you had prior to, I think it was 2012, and now look at it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like,
it's insane.
You can't imagine. I mean, even driving up here, it was like brown. Oh, this is really green. I guess this is where Paul's at.
You're here. Yeah, exactly. Totally. And it just keeps getting better. That's what's fun about doing this regenerative thing. Is it's like you walk out in that field and you come back in 2 years, it will, I promise you, it'll look far better than it does now. And this was a dirt field like 2 years ago, straight, like nothing growing dirt field. So it's like partnering with nature and having, a farm as your office, dude. I'm blessed. Like, dude, I gotta pinch myself sometimes because it's like, to be able to do that is really
working as a Marine, I can't imagine something that could be more rewarding.
It's really fun, and it's like, I feel like we're in the golden age of this regenerative thing right now. Not that it hasn't happened before. I would say Native Americans firmly understood the value of like passing on healthy soil to their kids. They would have said healthy soil is actually way more important than like cash or money in the bank or anything. Like, soil is where you store wealth. So this idea is not new by any means, but it's like, it's fun to work with nature imperfectly. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like fumbling through all this stuff, but to be able to do it and try and see the reward and feed families,
tangible,
it's
man.
freaking rad. It's really fun.
It's so cool, man. Well, where can we find you? Links to, like, where are you at? You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, is that right?
Yeah, we have Pastured accounts everywhere. Like, you can follow that. I personally do a lot of my posts on LinkedIn just because I feel like the conversations are a little more substantial there. It's not just like haters or Instagram, Facebook's like kind of lame now, but we do post there, like our company does. I personally mostly post on LinkedIn. I like to refer people if they're interested in farming or food or any of that. APA, the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association, is like a really great starting point to go learn. There's a big message board, so that's apppa.org. If you're looking for like a farm that does pasture raise near you, that would be getrealchicken.com. That's a resource that we put together to. I want people buying local.
Yeah.
You can buy pastured nationwide. We'll ship it to your door, but like I would rather see people buy local, and if you can't find it locally, then get it from us, kind of thing.
Okay.
Or wait until we're in your local grocery store, because that's what we're really working on.
I'm waiting on that too. But I mean, we're definitely going to be in touch.
Yeah.
And this has been so great, man. One of the things I love about this job, man, is just getting to meet super interesting people like you. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Yeah.
And man, I'd love to maybe get you back on and see how things are going with your new project.
Yeah, come back in a couple of years. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure, dude.
All right, man.
All right, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. I am Nick Wilson. That is Major Vic Ruble, U.S. Marine Corps retired. You have also heard the voices of or contributions from William Treuting or Nancy Lichtman, editors of Gazette and Leatherneck magazines, respectively. Opinions expressed in Scuttlebutt are just that, opinions, and do not represent any official stance of the MCA.